Give us the first memory that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Could be a long story, could be one word.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Skyfall.
Judi Dench, I mean, it's easy. That's the sort of...
Yes.
I mean, you know, the fact that I got to work with her on 3 movies, and she's one of the most glorious, delicious human beings on planet Earth.
She is, right?
Yeah.
She looks that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, she does. Who doesn't love Judi Dench? But also, I remember Adele doing the theme on this
and
one.
Javier, I mean, okay.
Adele, come on.
I mean, it's all...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can't be that.
I'd like to start with some simple word associations. Just tell me the first word that pops into your head. Skyfall. Skyfall. Done.
Right, Nikolai, you said Skyfall was the first Daniel Craig Bond film that you saw, and it was at the cinema, so that must have been an amazing experience for you.
Yes, it was. One of the things that were probably the best parts of the Skyfall experience in the cinema was all of the references that they packed in there for the anniversary, because you could really feel the audience getting, hyped when the DB5 was revealed.
And I suppose that's completely inconspicuous.
Get in.
I wasn't even necessarily a Bond fan who could place all of the references at the time, at least. But even for me, when they opened up that shed and sort of revealed the car and had the little music cue go along with it, I was like, oh my God.
It's not very comfortable, is it?
Are you going to complain the whole way?
Oh, go on then, eject me. See if I can. Where are we going?
Back in time. Somewhere we'll have the advantage.
Later on, when the DB5 played a role in the climax of the movie, shooting up with the machine guns and then getting destroyed itself, that was a big thing, I remember. And just overall, I feel like from a lot of people who didn't like Craig's portrayal beforehand, it wasn't really felt when watching Skyfall. My mom, as I said, wasn't the biggest fan in the beginning, and even her watching Skyfall with her in the cinema, she was like, oh, this was actually a really good one. So there was almost this sense of near universal praise, kind of, that I felt also, and you kind of got swept up in it.
Matthew, do you think that it needed this kind of oomph? People like Mum and Dad, who I don't even know whether they even watched Quantum of Solace before then, they probably can't remember it. They were really sort of, wow, this is proper Bond.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I might be wrong on some of this, so I'm just going on off what I can remember and what I feel or whatever. But Quantum of Solace, I don't think, it wasn't such a big event, I don't seem to remember. I don't think the title helped in that regard as well. So, we had the 4-year gap, and we've discussed, haven't we? The Olympics, I think, helped with Bond appearing and being front and centre of the London Olympics, what it is to be British.
And a very Bond old-fashioned stunt, not gritty.
Absolutely. And, even that, obviously coming before Skyfall, but it's like Daniel Craig as James Bond is about more than just getting revenge for Vesper. He's, he's now embracing the role, and he is becoming that hero, and, taking the weight of it on his shoulders, which isn't an easy thing to do, to be the star of this franchise, and, not just making it about, these characteristics, but he is now James Bond. So I do think all of that helped. I do think perhaps there are strong kind of comparisons to be made with Goldfinger, but particularly Spy Who Loved Me, because Spy Who Loved Me had that bit more of a gap after The Man with the Golden Gun, which some people hadn't been as keen on, and that then was the third film of the actor where they really owned it. They brought in Adele to do the song, to do a more traditional Bond song. And despite what I said earlier about getting lesser known actors, I think getting Javier Bardem was a really good move.
Well, first time for everything. Yes.
What makes you think this is my first time?
Oh, Mr. Bond.
And just up the ante and the expectation. They brought in a big name director. So it did feel like it was, it was something big again. This was something, that was a date in the diary for even non-Bond fans. And then when it came along, it was brilliant and everyone loved it. And it was a film that mum and dad went to and they took the friends to, and that you'd be proud to show your friends this film. You wouldn't be worried about it. And I think it stays that way to this day.
Fletcher, you said before, didn't you, that you probably would have liked maybe Moneypenny and Q in Casino Quantum, but we get them back. What do you think of those two new itinerations of the characters?
I mean, I enjoyed it for what they brought to the role. It was interesting to see Moneypenny, especially because when we first introduced her, she's an agent.
It's all right. You weren't using it.
I wasn't using that one either.
Which, put a nice little spin on the character. So obviously when we look back and remember Lois Maxwell's iteration of the character, who we see constantly at her desk, is, so we're now seeing, okay, this is what she was doing before, or could have done before, because obviously it's a different universe as such. I liked the reintroduction of the characters. It was different. We were bringing these characters back. It felt like, okay, we had moved on from the stage where Casino Royale and Quantum had left us. And it's weird because I often say that the Craig era is split into maybe three eras. So you've got Casino Royale and Quantum, which I think was it Nikolai? You said that or was it Kevin? You mentioned that they sort of speak the same language. I can't remember who it was. Sorry. Those two films sort of speak the same language, and then you've got Skyfall, which feels very much on its own, siloed from Casino Royale and Quantum. And then you've got Skyfall, and then you've got Spectre and No Time to Die, which feel like two films that sort of speak the same language. But what I wanted to say was Skyfall is a very interesting film for me personally, because I remember when they did the press release, the announcement of the film, that was the same day I went to the scan, where I found out that I was having a daughter.
Wow.
And I remember I wanted to, I didn't, like, God forgive me, but I just didn't care about the scan. I wanted to rush back to catch the press conference, and yeah, and she was born the following year, which is the 50th anniversary,
right.
And she was born on May 16th, which is the same day as Brosnan. And I actually ended up going to the premiere. It's been the one and only time that I've been to a Bond premiere, to see Skyfall.
Wow.
Great movie. I wouldn't say it's Craig's best, but yeah, I think everything really fell into place with that film. A lot of people did not like Quantum for various reasons, which is understandable. Then you had the 4 year gap. Like Math was mentioned, like Math said, we had Adele, we had the Olympics, so everything fell into place. And when the film was brilliantly well crafted, and it just delivered. And people had complained about where's Q, where's Moneypenny. They were reintroduced in this film.
Oh yeah, I mean, backing up what everyone says, it felt like way more of an event with all that build up, which was exciting. It felt like it was really anticipated, and it felt like everyone who was on board in terms of director, cast, everything that had put together, who had been involved with it, were really proud of it, excited to unveil it. I think even the title was exciting because it was short and original, and it made people quite curious. It was perfect, wasn't it? Just like getting Adele to do the song, the Olympics, and like Bond interacting with the Queen. It's just like this is everything you want. Like you want the world to see Bond like this, and it felt like it had moved on from him being out for revenge, quite down Bond, to this one that was proud and really up for a mission. And then the actual film felt like a proper event in terms of like the action, the budget, how it looked. The locations were quite down to earth, really, because a lot of it was like London and Scotland, so it wasn't necessarily glamorous in that respect. But even that was something original, something that about that was rooted in kind of the pride, pride of Britain.
Pride of Britain Award.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid that, which just felt really, really good. And it's a good cast. It's great. I mean, I think if I've got two things that I'm less keen on, well, there's a few things. I think it takes inspiration from other films a bit too much. I don't particularly like this introduction to Q, and I think it was wrong to make Bond suddenly approaching retirement. That was a big leap. But other than that, I mean, it can't be much better, really, for the time that it came and what it did for the existing fans and to recruit new fans. It really couldn't have been any better. For me, it was like the little things that really mattered, like the ending.
Are you ready to get back to work?
With pleasure, M. With pleasure.
That ending for me with M, the new M, in M's traditional looking office, things like that really mattered to me. And for Bond to deliver such a positive line about him looking forward to his job just made me feel like, oh, we are in a really, really good position now. We are, we've had, even though Quantum of Solace might not have been solemn, I didn't mean to say that.
Well,
Even though that might not have been to everyone's taste, really, got a fairly good trio of films here: Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall.
Well,
apart from taking that leap to him being retired, which is a bit problematic for the future. Really, that's a pretty good trio, and we're finishing this Skyfall in a really strong position where he's up for the next mission. And it just felt so good before, like the build up to Skyfall, watching Skyfall, and the place that you were left after Skyfall was just great, brilliant. A really good period for the franchise.
Is it your favourite Craig?
I think so. I think it's probably got to be for all those reasons I've said. It's the happiest I've felt.
I loved the film. I didn't really like how they aged him up. Yes, if he got shot, let him just have the injury. There was no need to say he's over the hill or anything like that, because the previous film was Quantum, and that literally took place after Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So he just went from rookie to over the hill, and and then we got two movies after that. So it just felt a bit, they really should have just stuck with him having an injury and let him, recoup from that.
We can always do this later.
You know what? Let's.
I love the film. Like I said, it's not my favorite film, but there's some really great moments in there, and it's a very triumphant film. Like Harry said, Bond is ready to take on the next mission, and it just left things in a really great place for the next film to, pick up.
I know John said this before, but we can bring Steve in. Do you think ideally there would have been, if they could have had one in 2010, or they delayed one of them, of just Bond, not young, not old, so it all makes a bit more sense in terms of his age, maybe?
Yeah, it would have been nice. Sorry, I think obviously the Olympics bridged the gap to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And with the 50th anniversary, they had to do something big in Skyfall, which I think they did. They offered a lot of stuff towards the original formula. I mean, I think it was Harry that was saying, he was sitting in M's office and he was ready to be briefed again for another job. And it was like we were going back to the formulaic version of a movie being a mission rather than a story arc. This is what you've got to do. This is the operation. This is how you're going to do it. And this is where I'm sending you. But I did think Skyfall had to offer more. It had to offer some originality. I think it was the first time we saw Bond doing some sort of physical training since Shrublands, and it obviously offered a massive chunk of history of the character as well, in that it showed his childhood home. So, but at the same time as focusing on, obviously you've got exotic locations, Macau and whatnot, but London as well. So it seemed like a very rooted Bond film. But the only thing I didn't like about Skyfall, I can forgive them for doing it, but it did seem like they were tipping the hat a lot to the previous franchise, which I can kind of understand in the 50th, with it being the 50th anniversary film. But it was a lot for me personally.
Did you mind the Aston Martin coming back? And is it meant to be the Goldfinger one? All this.
Well, I don't know. It's a bit like saying, just jumping ahead to No Time to Die.
Yeah.
Does he drive Dalton's V8? And if so, why would you leave a fully tricked out Q branch V8 and take a Land Cruiser when you need to escape a bunch of bad guys? So part of me thinks that V8 was a different car to Dalton's V8, and therefore this DB5 was Alex Dimitrios's one that maybe Bond took to Q. It wasn't the Goldfinger DB5. It was literally something that he took to Q and got tricked up of his, on his own.
And it is a real return to London, like you mentioned. Obviously, your London Bond on Instagram.
Yes.
They did it, of course, in Spectres quite a lot in the final acts in London. And in No Time to Die, there's like the middle third quite a lot in London. So do you think that's something that particularly British fans, it made a real influence? Like, we're proud of our country, and Bond is part of that whole British thing.
Well, I definitely think so. Until recently, Superman was always truth, justice, in the American way. He was sort of like the American flagship. Whereas in the UK, we didn't really have anyone like that apart from Bond. Bond is our superhero. He is our flagship. He is our brand. And I think, the capital represents him well. He's a man about the world, but he always comes back to London. It starts in London, it ends in London. This is, where he lives, where he, for, a lot of his time works, trains, that's where his vehicles are. That's what, the restaurants that he goes to eat, the hotels that he frequents, that we read about in the books. It's all in London. So London is in his blood. I know he wasn't born there, but I think the lifestyle that he's chosen since he's grown up into the man he wants to be is the London lifestyle. It's flat in Chelsea. It's all London.
It is great now when you go to London, the amount of stuff that you can go and see that has been in the films, even just from the Craig films, is insane. When we was there the other weekend, we went to we've been before to Rules, which is in Spencer. You can go to you can see the MI6 buildings. I'm going to say the Diner of the Day door, of course. That's no, but no, even like the National Gallery, of course. There's
well,
so
that's the thing. Lazenby lamppost. It's all just there, and it adds just another dimension to London. I think, especially for most people walk past that lamppost and think it's just a lamppost, but a Bond fan will know. They will know, and they will want to jump up there and do the iconic pose and lean against it and hang off it. And the same with that door. Every time I pass it, loads of people walk past it, they don't even realise it's there, but I know what it is.
That's even
Westminster
better.
Bridge. I know what happened on Westminster Bridge. I know the drum of the Treasury building. That's the courtyard for MI6. So every time I walk past there, I have a quick peek in there because that was where Daniel Craig walked across with Moneypenny. There's so many understated, iconic locations in London.
Right, Harry, for some reason, was particularly positive about Skyfall. So I want Chris to sort of bring it back to, is this a Dark Knight ripoff?
Well, that's usually that's Matt's little discussion.
Oh, we'll blame Matt.
We'll blame Matt. But now I think for me, like I said earlier, it's like with some Bond films, you get one that you absolutely love. It hits just all the right notes, and then you get one that doesn't quite land as well. And Quantum was definitely that. So Skyfall felt like, right, here we are, we're back on track. This is, and like you say, you just felt that Harry said about it, just felt much more, a little bit more kind of bit more buoyant. I think the writing was a little bit better. So when I watched it originally, I was really pleased by it. I thought it was a great Bond film. Maybe maybe not quite kind of Casino Royale kind of levels of writing, but but sadly, this is the one that's actually on repeat viewing. I started to see a lot of the cracks. And that is just again, as a lot of the writing, that obviously the plot being, you know, largely quite a familiar story. They do Moneypenny a dirty by, setting her up as, being a field agent and then giving her a death by, in a couple of scenes later.
Take the bloody shot!
I did mention this in the review that I feel that, the film isn't 100% comfortable with it being a Bond film. And so it does sort of downplay some of the Bond notes that you would expect. For example, the score as well, I think it doesn't have that. Yeah, it's just like, when Bond does what Bond does, you get the Bond theme music, and you want to almost stand up and you want to kind of cheer as he does that. So there's a lot of moments in Skyfall where you're expecting that kind of, that real kind of hit, and it just pulls back, and it feels like it slightly doesn't want to go there. And obviously the scene with Q where he first meets him is probably the most kind of explicit message to the audience that this series of films is not what you had come before. This is not Die Another Day. We're not into that sort of stuff anymore.
A gun and a radio. Not exactly Christmas, is it?
Were you expecting an exploding pen? We don't really go in for that anymore.
And then, like I said, just some of the female characters in it are just let down with the writing, and I think that are poorly treated. Just in terms of, I think it comes at an approach of being quite progressive, but actually it's really regressive when you actually watch it and what they actually do to some of the characters. Having said that, the set piece at Skyfall is great, and it is one of the best kind of set pieces in modern Bond. I think Javier Bardem is absolutely class.
You see what comes of all this running around, Mr. Bond? All this jumping and fighting, it's exhausting. Relax. You need to relax.
I think, yes, you could argue he's too much like the Joker, but as an actor, as a commanding, performance, I think he's, absolutely great. And again, that ending, with the new M in the office felt like, yes, it's just those. I just wanted it to be a little bit more. But yeah, Skyfall is still a hugely enjoyable Bond film, and really well made in places. But yeah, I think for me, the faults of Quantum were obvious when I watched it the first time. Skyfall has sort of revealed itself to be sort of, someone's been painting over the crack, and it becomes quite apparent the more that you watch it, and it becomes less enjoyable. But like all Bond films, you can watch it through that sort of critical lens, or you can just watch it because it's just a Bond film and you just want to be in that world with those characters and just enjoy it. And I still get a huge amount of enjoyment with Skyfall. My frustration, like a lot of Daniel Craig's series, the intention is there for them to be great, but they always fall a little bit too short of where the originally, that the sort of greatness that they should have. And I think largely that is down to the scripts are at times pretty poor, and even though there is this overarching kind of sort of plot structure, it's not. It was never planned that way. And again, the more you watch it, the more it just sort of crumbles. But yeah, Skyfall loads to praise, absolutely. But yeah, there's just a few kind of issues.
You think Daniel Craig is more into the role and he's enjoying himself a bit more?
Oh yeah, I think he's, like you say, his performances are. You can tell he always gives 100% in terms of like, up to Skyfall, I feel like he's absolutely on there, and I think he performs it really well. Like Harry said before, sometimes it's what they want to do with that Bond isn't maybe what I wanted, and like at the beginning of Skyfall, that whole kind of like, he gets shot and then we go through this whole phase of him being a bit, kind of grumpy, and and he goes off and sulks, and then comes back, and I could just be without that, and I think that's where his sort of performance, that's sort of, isn't necessarily to my taste, but I always thought that, Craig always gives it his all. I would say less so in Spectre, but I'm jumping ahead.
Can't wait for that. Yeah. Kevin, you obviously, Daniel Craig's your favourite Bond, and you said Skyfall is your favourite of the five.
Yes, absolutely. It's my favorite of the five. It's my favorite Bond film
Yeah. Oh.
in general. Going into it, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Daniel Craig had me at Casino Royale. So going into Skyfall, for reasons we mentioned, it was just Bond was everywhere. It was lightning in a bottle with the 50th anniversary and the Olympics. And actually, my wife and I, in the year before, in 2011, we had spent a week in London. Like we had been in London, and so we were just not because we knew Skyfall was going to have a big chunk there, but it was cool to see. Like, oh wow, he's like, well, I was in the Temple Tube Station. I didn't. That's cool. It's so that was really fun to see. But just my favorite Bond. And then I think Spectre gets a lot of credit for bringing back the formula and reestablishing the formula, when actually I think Skyfall is the one that reestablished the formula. Maybe it's not as in your face or explicit, but they really did. They introduced, I mean, you got things like Patrice, I think is a decent henchman. I kind of equate him to Locke in For Your Eyes Only.
Tell me, who are you working for?
He's distinctive in my eyes. Like I was like, I could pick him out of a lineup. Like he's efficient. He's got his thing going on. So you got the henchman, you got the villain's lair with Silva's Island, you got the Bond car, you got him interacting with Moneypenny right before going to see M, getting a mission from M. Where does he go after he gets a mission from M? He goes to CQ. He gets his gear. Beat for beat, they really are checking the boxes, although it's not as laid out as it has been in other films. Like it reestablishes that formula, and I think it does it in a pretty effective way, and maybe in ways we don't expect. Like you flip the Q Bond relationship. Bond is the older, maybe more grumpy one, and Q's the younger one, and so like that dynamic is a little flipped, and so there's a lot in my view that's going on with it. I mean, is it ripping off from Dark Knight? Is it taking elements from The World Is Not Enough? Yeah. Does it bother me? No. Like Bond has done that before. Like it's gone with the times. It's pulled from its own movies. At the end of the day, like for me, does it use those elements from other movies, from its own movies, and tell a story that I can grab onto? And for me, 100%. Like I love this story. I love how we see a Bond who is questioning himself, who has lost a step, as Mallory says, and he finds that will to keep going. He's not 100%, towards the end of this movie, but he keeps going. And that's what I love about this particular film, is we see Bond on his heels, but he's not giving in. Like he's going to continue, he's going to persist. And I think Bond's at his best when he is persistent against all odds, and he continues to fight regardless of kind of what's coming against him.
There's a lot of twists on the formula, though. I know people say it is getting back to the traditional elements. We don't really have a proper Bond girl love interest because we've got the Moneypenny, because technically we're not meant to know who it is. We're not meant to know it's her. But of course we've got M. So, I mean, Kevin, you must think that whole Judi Dench, Daniel Craig relationship is probably the beating heart of it, in a way that Eva Green and Daniel Craig do a totally different, romantic job. But Craig and Dench together are a lot of the reason of the success of the film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and you really see it in the very beginning, because like a lot of what Bond is doing when he's questioning himself after he gets shot twice and falls off that bridge, he hears who he genuinely sees as a mother figure. He's somebody he wants to impress. And we see that in the novels too, right? Like I think it's in Moonraker when he's when he goes to meet M, he wants to impress him. He wants to be seen as capable in M's eyes. Like he looks up to M. And so you see that continue in this movie. He has a lot of respect for M. And so when he hears her say, take the bloody shot, and he, you didn't trust me to finish the job. Like he feels betrayed again. Like she replaces Vesper in more than one way. He feels like she didn't trust him. She didn't trust him to finish the job. He feels betrayed. And so kind of taking that step back and thinking, what is my life? What do I do? I trusted this woman. I trusted my life to this profession. And at the end of the day, he feels duty bound to come back and protect her and protect MI6 and just kind of get the job done, basically. So that's, yeah, I think their relationship is certainly key in this particular film. Yeah.
This is where you grew up. How old were you when they died?
You know the answer to that. You know the whole story.
Orphans always make the best recruits.
I love Skyfall. I think it's a great film. By far and away the best cinematic experience I've had for Daniel Craig film, James Bond film. Went in there and straight away it felt Bond is back for me. That was how I felt. I think and you're right, there's that paradox of this feeling the most Bond-like and yet twisting the formula at every thing. I mean, you rip it to its bare bones, and it's the only James Bond film where he fails. Silver's sole mission is to kill M, and he succeeds at it.
I suppose it's too late to make a run for it.
Well, I'm game if you are.
I did get one thing right.
But yet, even though it is that, I totally agree with, I think it was Fletcher who said it feels triumphant. Because it does. I mean, and this is like this whole thing with Skyfall. Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson have always tried to make, in the Craig era, more than a Bond film. They've tried to do something a bit more, I don't know what it is, maybe critically or twist the formula or push it. And I get there's some bravery in that. I think Skyfall's the example where it works the best. Because I don't include Casino Royale in that because the vast majority of that is based on a Fleming book. I think Skyfall works the best and it was by far the most successful. It should be celebrated and it should be applauded for how well it did, for how it made you feel proud to be British. I mean, I know it was like a bit of a perfect storm with the Olympics and all the rest of it, but I can't remember a time since then where it's been so proud to be British. The 90s, we used to be obsessed with being British. And then it's that era, and then there's nothing. And I think that Skyfall certainly contributes to that. I could get that, where does this Aston Martin DB5 car come from? Different timelines, yada. It never passed through my mind the first time I watched it. I was just stoked to see the car. And I think that was the reaction that they wanted audiences to have. This is a 50th anniversary and we want to celebrate it. And I think Silver is by far and away the best villain in the Craig era. I absolutely love the Allies. Mallory, superb.
I only have one question. Why not stay dead? You have the perfect way out. Go and live quietly somewhere. Not many field agents get to leave this cleanly.
Do you get out in the field much?
You don't need to be an operative to see the obvious. It's a young man's game. Look, you've been seriously injured. There's no shame in saying you've lost a step. The only shame would be not admitting it until it's too late.
Hire me or fire me. It's entirely up to you.
If he says he's ready, he's ready.
Perhaps you can't see it, or maybe you won't.
What exactly are you implying?
You're sentimental about it.
As long as I'm head of this department, I'll choose my own operatives.
Fair enough. Good luck, 007. Don't cock it up.
Albert Finney's character, Kincaid, superb. Just love the Allies.
So who is it we're supposed to be fighting?
No we in it, Kincaid. This is not your fight.
Try and stop me, you jumped up little shit.
Yeah, he might be quite functional, but Patrice, great that we've got an extra kind of whatever you want to call them, henchman, second villain, whatever. And I was in London last weekend, and to this point, getting on the Underground, I feel proud. I feel proud getting on the Underground, and you know, maybe that's because I go to London once a year, and I'm a bit.
That's why I don't have to take it every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm not London Bond. I'm Little Lever Bond, and and you know, I love it, and a lot of that is down to Skyfall. I wish it was it's a weird thing to say this, and I know you'd have to twist a lot of things around, but I wish Spectre was the third James Bond film and Skyfall was the fourth James Bond film. And his last. Oh. And his last. I wish it was his last, because I think it's the perfect way to have finished his era. In the questioning if he's relevant, and then the idea of M passing, but Bond continuing. That's it. To me, that's the perfect bookend to Daniel Craig era. And if Spectre one was the third one, and it was just the idea that Blofeld was linked to the quantum stuff, that would sit easier with me. But you know, it swings and roundabouts, because I've just talked about how it was a contribution to the Olympics and all that. So you can't have the best of both worlds, can you? You know, you've just got to take what you get. But no, I love it. It's brilliant.
That's better. You look the part now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well, what part's that?
Old dog. New tricks.
Keep watching our Daniel Craig retrospective, where we move on to Sam Mendes' second directorial film for the series, Spectre.